Welcome to the deep dive. You've probably been hearing a lot about bringing real-world assets onto the blockchain.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic.
And today we're diving into one project really making waves there, Plume. They call themselves the on-chain home for real-world assets.
That's right. And look, to really get what Plume is all about, we're going straight to the source, their own docs.
Good idea.
Think of this as, your quick way to grasp their core ideas, the tech, and why this might actually matter for how we deal with assets.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty straightforward. We want to pull out the really crucial bits about Plume.
Yep.
What are they actually trying to do? How are they tackling this pretty complex challenge of tokenizing real stuff?
Right.
And maybe most importantly, what makes Plume stand out, especially if you're listening and want to get up to speed without getting totally bogged down in jargon.
Exactly. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this. What's the fundamental idea driving Plume?
Well, at its heart, Plume is really focused on what they call tangible demand.
Tangible demand.
Yeah. They're specifically going after yield-generating assets, things that offer, stability, transparency, and ideally a steady income. So it's not just about tokenizing anything. It's about bringing assets that people already want, that already have real value, into the digital space.
That makes a lot of sense. It sounds quite practical, actually, focusing on where blockchain can genuinely help with real financial needs.
Precisely.
So how does Plume see itself, connecting the dots between traditional finance, TradFi, and crypto?
Their whole mission is basically to build that bridge. They want to line up with the existing market demand for these kinds of tangible assets,
Okay.
while also providing the tools needed for compliance, transparency, and this is key, interoperability.
Interoperability. Right?
Yeah, to get that for this to really work, it needs to fit with regulations and be easy to use for, well, both the old finance guys and the crypto natives.
And what's the big overarching goal here? What are they ultimately aiming for?
The big picture for Plume, it's about unlocking global access, getting more people involved in owning assets and investing.
Ah, okay.
By tokenizing these real-world assets, they kind of envision a more inclusive, more efficient financial system.
Yeah.
Where people who were previously shut out by high costs or lack of liquidity can actually participate.
Okay, so that's the vision. But, I mean, this RWA space is getting crowded fast. What makes Plume different? What are their key differentiators?
Well, several things jump out from their docs.
Yeah.
First, they talk a lot about their robust ecosystem.
Ecosystem.
Yeah, they mentioned over 180 apps and protocols already integrated or building on their network.
Wow, 180. That's a lot.
It is. And it suggests, really active developer community, lots of potential for new apps and tools being created, which is a good sign for future utility for users like you.
Definitely. A vibrant ecosystem is usually a positive indicator. What else sets them apart?
Another big one is the strong demand they've apparently already seen.
Oh, yeah.
Their recent testnet campaign, they reported, get this, 3.75 million unique users.
3.75 million on a testnet.
Yeah, and 265 million transactions.
Yeah.
All within the first 8 weeks.
Okay, that's pretty significant engagement. It really signals people are interested, actively kicking the tires.
Exactly. It shows substantial early interest and, importantly, active participation. People aren't just watching, they're trying it out.
Makes sense. They also mentioned partnerships. How do those fit in? Are they strategic?
Yes, they really emphasize that. Collaborations with key players, both in crypto and traditional finance, are vital for them.
To sort of amplify demand?
Yeah, amplify demand and expand their reach into different markets. These partnerships are crucial for actually building that bridge we talked about,
Yeah.
connecting them with established players and the existing crypto world.
Gotcha. They also talk about having full stack technology. Now, for someone listening who isn't maybe deep in the tech weeds, what does that mean practically?
Right. Think of it like this. They've built or are building
Yeah.
most of the essential layers themselves from the ground up. So Plume has developed these different parts of their tech stack to ensure everything connects smoothly. The assets being tokenized, the apps built on top, and the users interacting with it all.
So it's integrated, designed to work together.
Exactly. This vertically integrated approach aims for, well, efficiency, hopefully a better user experience, and the ability to scale things up effectively, maybe even across different chains eventually.
Right, a cohesive system.
Yeah.
Not just a bag of separate tools. Okay, and then there's this concept you mentioned, composability in RWA finance, or RWAfi. Why is that important for the assets on Plume?
This is where it gets really interesting, I think. Composability is all about how these tokenized RWAs can interact and be used across different DeFi apps.
So not just sitting there.
No, it means these RWAs aren't stuck in one place. They can have multiple uses. So like imagine you own a token representing a piece of a rental property on Plume.
Yeah.
Composability could mean you use that same token as collateral, say, to borrow some stablecoins on a completely different DeFi lending platform built on Plume, all without selling your share.
Huh. So it makes the asset work harder, essentially. Gives it more utility.
Precisely. It massively enhances the asset's utility and, opens the door for creating much more complex, maybe more innovative financial products down the line.
Okay, so it's not just digital ownership. It's about unlocking potential within that wider DeFi world. Now, looking ahead, Plume mentioned a really big number for committed assets ready for tokenization. What was that?
Yeah, that caught my eye too. They stated there's $4.5 billion in committed assets ready to be tokenized and distributed on their platform.
4.5 billion.
Billion, yeah. That figure really underscores the potential scale of yield-bearing opportunities they're aiming to bring on-chain. Gives you a sense of the ambition here.
That's a very substantial pipeline. So what's their plan? How do they actually get from committed assets to real opportunities for users? What's the roadmap look like?
Well, their roadmap highlights a few key things. First, keep expanding that RWAfi ecosystem, get more interconnected services built.
Makes sense. More apps, more utility.
Right. They're also actively looking at partnerships with more traditional players. Think neobanks, fintechs, maybe even established financial institutions.
For distribution, getting these tokens out there.
Exactly. Creating efficient channels to get these tokenized assets to a broader audience.
Right.
Ultimately, the goal is, as they put it, a sustainable, demand-driven, transparent, and inclusive financial ecosystem built on real stuff.
It sounds like a pretty comprehensive strategy, thinking about the tech, the partnerships, the distribution, all crucial pieces.
Yeah, you need all of them for this to really work at scale.
Now, just to give you, the listener, a slightly clearer picture of the architecture, let's quickly touch on some of the components Plume mentions. Things like Plume Chain, Arc, Nexus, Passport. What do these parts do?
Absolutely. Think of them as the core building blocks. Plume Chain, that's the foundation. It's the blockchain itself.
And it's EVM-compatible.
Yes. Crucially, it is. EVM-compatible just means it, speaks the same language as Ethereum, which is huge.
Because most DeFi stuff is on Ethereum or EVM chains.
Right. It lets developers easily port existing apps over or use familiar tools. So that's the base layer. Then you have Plume Arc.
Arc.
That seems to be where the actual tokenization happens, turning the real-world asset into a digital token, and where these tokens can then be traded, sort of the tokenization engine and marketplace.
Okay, Chain is the base. Arc handles the tokenization and trading. What about Nexus and Passport?
Plume Nexus is described as their data highway. So you can kind of think of it as the layer ensuring all the important data about the real-world asset ownership, maybe valuation updates, compliance info is reliably and transparently available on-chain.
Oh, the data layer. And Passport.
Plume Passport looks like their user-facing wallet solution.
Oh.
Smart wallets designed probably for ease of use in managing these RWA tokens.
Got it.
And it's worth mentioning, again, they definitely highlight resources for developers. Testnet, standard tools like Remix, Foundry, Hardhat. They clearly want people building on Plume.
Yeah, showing they're developer friendly. So even without diving super deep technically, you get a sense of a full stack approach. They've thought about the whole life cycle.
It seems that way, yeah. From infrastructure to tokenization to data to user wallets.
Okay, let's bring it back to you, the listener. Why should you pay attention to Plume, or this whole RWA trend in general? What's the potential impact here?
Well, I think the fundamental potential impact is about access and liquidity, making assets that were traditionally hard to buy, sell, or even own a piece of, making them much more accessible through tokenization.
Like fractional ownership of things.
Exactly. Imagine easily owning a small fraction of a commercial building or a portfolio of private credit loans, and things that used to be out of reach for most people. Plume's approach, and others like it, aim to create a more efficient system where these tokens can be traded easily, maybe used as collateral.
Right, that composability point again?
Yeah, participating in the wider DeFi world, it could genuinely open up totally new investment avenues for a much, much broader range of individuals.
So just to quickly summarize our deep dive on Plume today, they're building out an EVM-compatible blockchain laser-focused on RWAs.
Right.
Their strategy hinges on prioritizing real market demand, offering this integrated full-stack solution we talked about, and really emphasizing composability, how these assets can work together in DeFi.
Don't forget the traction.
Oh, yeah. That significant early testnet interest and that huge $4.5 billion figure in committed assets, it definitely points to some serious potential they're trying to unlock.
It really does. And this whole discussion kind of leads to a bigger question for you to think about, doesn't it?
Which is?
Well, what are the broader implications if, say, a significant chunk of real-world value does end up being represented and traded on blockchains like Plume? What kind of completely new financial tools or opportunities might pop up? And just as importantly, what are the challenges we need to tackle? For widespread adoption, for stability. How does that future actually work?
That's a really interesting thought to leave people with. It's definitely a fascinating and rapidly evolving space.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Plume, this whole intersection of traditional finance and blockchain. It's definitely one to keep watching.
Sure. Projects like Plume are right there, actively shaping what comes next.